Marisa Ramirez Ramos. I'm the Public Information Officer for Mesa Fire and Medical Department. Thank you all so much for being here with us this morning. I would like to begin by recognizing our Mesa City Council members in attendance. For District 1, we have Councilmember Mark Freeman, right here in the front row. District 2, we have Councilmember Julie Spilsbury. And we also have from District 3, Councilmember Scott Summers. 6. I'm sorry, I was going in order. I skipped. Once again, thank you all for being here with us this morning. Your support is greatly appreciated. It's a beautiful morning in downtown Mesa. We have the sweet smell of pancakes and syrup in the air, and we have an amazing group of volunteers here with us this morning from the organization Just Serve. They are the ones that brought this amazing pancake breakfast together for us this morning in honor of our first responders. This breakfast serves as a kickoff to a week of service projects in conjunction with September 11th, the National Day of Service and Remembrance. We will begin our presentation this morning with comments by Adam Anderson, an outreach specialist with Just Serve, followed by Assistant Chief Forrest Smith, along with Deputy Director Tara Acuna, Assistant Chief Ed Wessing, followed by Councilmember Freeman. After our speakers, we'll have Just Serve volunteers come up and present gifts to our elected officials and public safety representatives, followed by a group photo. With that, I would like to welcome up to the podium Adam Anderson.
Good morning. Almost 22 years ago today, from my Manhattan apartment, I watched in the same muted horror that almost the rest of the world felt, the towers crashed down. The next day, and for weeks after, I grieved in silent wonder as the world community united behind first responders from all over the world coming to New York to help. Just Serve is proud to partner with the City of Mesa to kick off this coming week of commemorating not the tragedy of that day, but the unity that followed that day. The unity of support for first responders like you and the unity of neighbors to improve our whole community. Now, while we welcome Assistant Chief Forrest Smith and Deputy Director Tara Acuna, I invite you all to resolve now to get out there this week and to just serve. Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of the Fire Chief Mayor Camelli, as well as the sworn personnel and professional civilian staff of the Mesa Fire and Medical Department, welcome. It's great to see also due to State Fire School, it's great seeing some friends throughout the state, and it's nice to be able to connect with you all. I also want to thank our fellow first responders who are in attendance. I know it's tough to get our firefighters and police officers come out to be recognized, so thank you for taking the time to come out. We're a humble bunch. I'd also like to thank our dignitaries, our council members who are in attendance here. I tell you what, without your support, we couldn't do it. And you guys get it. You're on board with us, and we appreciate you helping us with meeting our objectives to serve our community as well. So thank you so much. Now to the Just Serve staff as well as volunteers. Your engagement demonstrates the network of volunteerism and community support that epitomizes the nature of who we are as a country and who we are as Americans. Your ability to connect volunteers to humanitarian causes and organizations give these participants purpose and the receiving end dignified and much needed support. The National Day of Service and all the projects and programs supported by Just Serve highlight opportunities we have as a community of one to serve one another with respect, compassion, and dignity. But this is certainly not relegated to just one day, week, but it's year-round, right? Now, as a member of the City of Mesa Fire Medical Department, I had the privilege of participating in the first anniversary of the attacks of 9/11 in New York's Madison Square Garden. And I tell you, the New Yorkers received ourselves as well as firefighters from around the world with warm hearts, and we do appreciate those New Yorkers and what they did for us. And it was from folks from all walks of life. I can tell you, many of us who were in public safety at the time not only remember the praises of love and support from our community following the attacks of 9/11, but the sense of pride we had knowing that we belonged to a community of people who, with a calculated risk, were willing to give it all on the job that morning. We know it doesn't take living in New York to have that big city pride. We see it in our own communities here and throughout Arizona. Groups like Just Serve remind us we have scores of people in our communities here and back home in Arizona, throughout parts of Arizona, to serve and help take care of our friends, families, and neighbors. Thank you to the volunteers and staff for Just Serve for what you continue to do to support the welfare of our communities and, of course, for this breakfast. We in public safety are aware we can't do this alone, and it takes relationships with like-minded individuals and groups who are willing to contribute to our community's quality of life and support our health, life, and fire safety efforts. We know the support of volunteerism is priceless, but in terms of fiscal impact, the value can be quantifiable and show a positive fiscal return on our investment in the community. Now, to explain more on that, please welcome my friend and colleague, Tara Acuna, Deputy Director of Mesa Fire and Medical.
Thank you, Chief Smith. As Deputy Director, one of my areas of responsibility is to oversee the budget. Excuse me. And while we do have a significant budget, the volunteers make all of the difference to the community. Within the fire department, we have volunteers who give back to a variety of programs. One of the programs is the Community Emergency Response Team, where volunteers promote emergency preparedness throughout the community. We also have social services interns who provide follow-up visits to residents and refer them to helpful community resources. We have connector volunteers who actually support the first responders so they can stay on calls and readily available. And we have home safety education volunteers who identify hazards in the home. They provide education to residents and install safety devices. By providing this education, they also keep the emergency calls down. Last year, the fire department volunteers gave approximately 8,776 volunteer hours. According to the Points of Light Foundation, the monetary value for each volunteer hour is $31.80. This means that last year alone, the fire department employees provided just under $300,000 of monetarily in volunteer hours, which is amazing. My appreciation goes out to all of our volunteers and for organizations like Just Serve, who help our volunteers contact with organizations in the community. At this time, I'd like to welcome Assistant Police Chief Ed Wessing to the podium.
Good morning. I echo a lot of what my colleague Forrest Smith just said about our community leaders. And as I travel around the country visiting with other major cities, I'm always grateful to know that the patch and badge that I wear has the city of Mesa on it. We truly have an amazing community. And it's really times of tragedy typically when we see this. Now, when 9/11 occurred, I remember I'd only been here for about 4 years. And it literally unilaterally changed law enforcement, not only here, but across the country. Not only did we lose so many brothers and sisters in blue, as well as our firefighter brothers and sisters, but thousands of community members across the country were lost. Many of us decided to become in law enforcement or firefighters. Many joined the military branches of service. But it really brought the communities together across the country for things like this. And I think this is what's really special about today. Many people celebrate, tragedies or holidays of tragedies by raising a flag and doing not much other than that. But when we have groups like Just Serve that not only honor that day, but they honor the communities that were impacted by service. And that's what's important, is doing something with your hands. You see 50 quilts being made. These young children from Johnson Elementary making thank you cards. Believe it or not, those really mean something to us. When they're delivered to our stations, when our community shows up with food and open arms just to say thank you. Those are the things that we don't often see, but those are the things that mean the most to us. When we have things like this happen, there were signs in all of our stations. Community just came out to say thank you. And the fact that we have folks across this city in the next week doing projects just saying thank you and honoring the sacrifice of our first responders and the work that they do today just speaks greatly for the city of Mesa. Now, recently I had a humbling opportunity to be in New York City and really walk through the grounds of where this tragedy hit us. And I encourage anyone, if you have an opportunity, to visit the new museum. It's probably the most touching museum that I've ever been, maybe closely followed by a few in DC. And you'll walk through that, and at the very end of it, you're going to hear voices. And they were voicemails to loved ones of people that were on planes, people whose first responders were in the rubble and they didn't know if they were alive. And it really draws you back to that day, and really, in my opinion, grounds you in why we do what we do, why we serve the community of Mesa, and why many of you will be serving our community in a separate way. And I really just wanted to say thank you to those that are here to serve, and we appreciate you. From all of my officers here, as well as our firefighter brothers and sisters, a heartfelt thank you for what you do for our community. Now, I'll just close by introducing both Councilmember Freeman and Councilmember Summers, who are ardent supporters of public safety themselves. Not only have they served in public safety, but also as they continue to serve our community across the city. So, council members, the podium's yours.
Thank you, Chiefs. I'm very humbled by this opportunity to come up here and speak to you because it is personal. But I also want you to know there's a great hot breakfast over here for any of those that have not eaten yet. We've got volunteers over here that would like to serve you. And it's so important that we have a healthy breakfast. So, well, welcome. Good morning to the city of Mesa. I'm Mark Freeman, a retired Mesa Fire paramedic captain. I've enjoyed over 30 years of service in our community. I also serve now as the public safety chairman, also serve as the Arizona League of Cities representative on public safety, as well as the National League of Cities representative on public safety and crime prevention. And as I travel the community, as the nation, as Assistant Chief Wessing talked about, I see the issues that affect our communities, our states, and especially our cities. And I want you to know Mesa stands proud. We are #1 in everything that we do because we have the finest public safety personnel in our community. With our council members, Councilmember Spilsbury, she's awesome. She supports and loves our public safety personnel. 2 days from now, we're going to remember what happened on September 11th, 2001. I can tell you firsthand, I had returned to the fire station after a late call in the morning. As we were packing up our gear to leave the station, shift change, I looked up at our TVs in our room and I saw a skyscraper on fire. And I started to shudder. I go, where the heck is this? And then, after a few minutes, Engineer Bob and we watched an aircraft fly into an additional building. And I go, oh my gosh, America is under attack. And I can't tell you the fear and the concern I had for all the public safety personnel who were trapped, and then also all the civilians, everybody who is going to be affected by this tragedy, and all the response that is going to be happening to help mitigate what they are thinking of a fire in a skyscraper. And then I remember one of the videos of a young firefighter going up the stairwell. He had his hose pack on him, his air bottles, and his axe in his hand, turned and looked at the camera, and I thought, that's the last time we're going to see him. And it was. This is something, this horrendous situation, one we will never forget. America went into lockdown. America was forever changed. America was paralyzed in the attack on American soil. Consequently, what you do in public safety is personal. It's critical to the integrity and stability of our country, our cities and towns in which you serve. As elected officials, and current and retired public safety personnel, we know the importance that all of you play in our communities. Your dedication and courage and commitment to bring to the job every day cannot be overstated. You serve, whether it's in Mesa or our surrounding communities in Arizona or wherever you serve, you have to serve with pride, be humble, and say thank you when people support you. We want you to be safe and go home to your families every day at the end of every shift with your friends and family. Over the next week, there will be many other volunteers who show their gratitude to do some small acts of service in your honor. Let us be a reminder to all of us to never forget our commitment to serving, as well as a reminder of the bravery and sacrifice that our brothers and sisters made on September 11th, 2001. May we all strive to honor their memory daily by working towards a more peaceful and compassionate area, especially in Mesa and our surrounding communities. With that, I'd like to thank you for everything that you do, all the blue shirts out there, whether they're light blue, dark blue, or in Class A uniforms. So it is a service. All of us work collaboratively together to make our community super safe. With that, I'd like to turn some time to Councilmember Summers, who also serves on our Public Safety Committee.
2001 was an interesting day. I still serve in the fire service with Phoenix Fire Department. I've been there 27 years. I spent over 20 years on the hazmat team and 20 years on FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Team, which that team deployed to 9/11. I also grew up in Western New York. Where's the gentleman that spoke first? There he is. You might be too young, I don't know, but there was a commercial for Channel 11 in New York. Do you remember it? It was just, I remember it in 9/11 because it pushed out, they were trying to push Channel 11 and he was looking for a way to symbolize Channel 11 New York in New York, and he kept passing the Twin Towers as they stood up there. You remember that? Vaguely. I remembered that on that day. That's a commercial that just kept going through my head, seeing that commercial every single day. And I remember where I was, like many of us. I had just put on my uniform. I got my assignment to Station 41, which is a hazmat station, and I started taking off, and my wife calls me on the phone and says there's an airplane crashed into the towers. I said, well, that's a heck of a mistake, and because I didn't see it. And by the time I got to the station, the second one hit, and we knew that this was no accident. It wasn't long after that we were assembled for a FEMA briefing because some of the team was going to go down there. Unfortunately, I was not one of them, but a lot of our folks went down there. And they were there helping. 343 firefighters went down with those buildings. 23 police officers went down with those buildings, and 8 paramedic EMS workers went down. And so our team flew in with many others to help the people of New York and to rescue who they could. And I think what gets me most about the events that followed wasn't so much the tragedy, because there was a lot of it, the pain, because there was a lot of it. But what got me most is the camaraderie and the service and the way this country came together and said, we will not be drugged down with these buildings by anyone. We will rise up again. We will become one nation, a nation that is often divided, but today will not be. And we will remember, because 20 years on, we are still coming together, not just for a memorial, not just to hang flags, not to put up a new plaque, but we are coming together to volunteer in the memory of those people who fell, who served our community, who went overseas to avenge our loss. And we come together this week to serve our local community and help the people that are here, because ultimately that's what firefighters and police officers and paramedics do. We are in service to our community. And so thank you everybody who has shown up here today, especially the ones that are getting blankets over here. Those look really cool, by the way. To serve our community this week so that we never forget what happens and we always can find a way to come together for our country and for our community. Thank you so much.
I want to thank all of our speakers for their heartfelt words. We'll end the presentation this morning with a gift of quilts. So if I could have Mr. Fred Ashby please come up here along with the Just Serve volunteers.
Thank you, Assistant Chiefs and council members. As long as I remember, I'm a Mesa boy, went to elementary and junior high school here, and as long as I remember, I've always been served by these people in blue. And police officers and fire department, and the narrative is not, they've worked for years and thousands of hours and lives to serve each of us. And Just Serve got together and said, how can we change the narrative? How can we let them know how much we honor them and how we love them? And we thought, well, we can feed them. This presentation we have now are Gwen and Tava, and these sweet volunteers with Just Serve thought, let's go ahead and post on Just Serve for the community in a collaborative effort. Let's make some quilts and present them to our leaders of the fire and of the police. And the outpouring of love and service was unbelievable. A group of Native Americans arrived one night while they were tying quilts, and never stitched a thing in their lives, and these gals taught them how to quilt, and they went away touched because they wanted to serve the fire and the police and our first responders. So we'd like to give each one of you, and Marissa and Jessica, where are you at? You're not getting out of here. We want both of you to come up and receive one of these quilts also. Thank you again. We want to thank each one of you, and we thank you. We honor you. Hey, one last thing. There's 29 others for the 22 assistant chiefs and commanders, also, and it's up to both of you to make sure we get those in the right hands, because we've made one for each one of your assistant chiefs and your commanders. So we want to thank you. I say we. They have. So thank you.
Thank you so much.